She was on the list, but no one saw her. A suitcase was left on the platform. Shut, dusty. 2 days later, I found a note, and then a photograph. Now I'm not sure she ever left at all. Somewhere between stations, the morning began as usual. At 5:42, Edgar Garrison, conductor of train number 217, stepped into the car with a thermos in one hand and the passenger list in the other. His boots tapped dully against the rubber flooring as he passed the rows of still empty seats. The lighting in the car was dim, as it should be at that hour. A bluish stripe of dawn filtered through the windows. He always arrived early, not because he was required to, but because the silence before departure felt pure. He noticed things others overlooked: a forgotten umbrella, a lingering glance on the platform, a passenger who looked without seeing. He stopped at his service nook, set the thermos on the shelf, and spread out the papers. Routine route, southbound, 6 stops to the final station, 7 hours in total. Passengers would start boarding in 20 minutes. While it was still quiet, he flipped through the list: names, seat numbers, payment statuses. Everything was familiar. Next to each name, the corresponding car and seat. In row 14, it read, Carter, Esami, Car 3, Seat 7A. He ticked it. Ticket verified, payment complete. When passengers began boarding, Edgar checked tickets, helped the elderly with their bags, responded briefly and politely. His face wore a practiced smile. He knew this route well, where the brakes took longer to grip, where the coffee from the machine tasted more bitter. And he knew how quickly people vanished into their screens once seated. But this time something was off from the start. He noticed the luggage shelf in car 3, near 7A, was occupied before any passengers had arrived. He took note. Gray, worn, with a torn tag and a fabric handle. It looked old, like it had traveled more than one route. But no one was sitting nearby. When the train moved off and reached the first station, Edgar walked through the car. Seat 7A was empty, the suitcase gone. And as he would later realize, it had ended up on the platform, alone, without an owner, without a reason. The list was full, but someone was clearly missing from it. At first, he thought he'd simply made a mistake. It happened. People sat in the wrong seats, switched places, especially when the car was half empty. But this time, things didn't add up. He remembered clearly. When he first walked past 7A during the initial check, the seat looked occupied. Not a bag, more like a dark backpack resting beside it, and in the cup holder, a thermos with a metal lid. It looked like someone was there. But on the next round, 40 minutes later, the seat was vacant. The backpack was gone. So was the thermos. And most of all, he couldn't recall seeing a face, only a lingering sense that someone had definitely been there. He returned to the service cabin and accessed the camera footage. The cars were captured from above, one frame every 20 seconds, not video, but still shots. He found the segment between 5:46 and 6:10. In one image, a blurry silhouette near the window, the face in shadow. In the next, the seat was empty. He clicked through the frames but couldn't be sure of what he was seeing. At times, it felt like the image had shifted, not because of the equipment, but because of memory, as if the change had occurred inside him, not on the screen. At the bottom, a timestamp, 6:03, already en route between stations. The Masonville stop was scheduled later. He flipped through the list again. Carter, S.V. The name didn't stand out, nothing suspicious. Female based on the initials. No age listed. Ticket purchased online. No contact info. Just in case, he took a screenshot from the footage, then printed it and tucked it into his notebook. Why? He didn't know. He just didn't want it to disappear. One detail stayed with him. It felt as if the air above the headrest still held the outline of shoulders. In the old depot building, in the far wing, behind a metal door with peeling paint, was a basement, the place where all lost things ended up. Ownerless suitcases, umbrellas, children's toys, books with someone else's bookmarks. Edgar rarely went down there, usually only to recover something misplaced. Today, the opposite. He was looking for something no one had claimed to lose. Boxes stood arranged by season, scribbled on the cardboard sides, months and years. He scanned the dates. April 2024. He remembered that month someone had vanished. A woman who reportedly boarded a train but never reached her destination. The news barely touched it. The police ran a brief investigation, blaming it on emotional instability. Officially, missing. He opened the box. Inside, a folded woman's handkerchief with faded embroidery. CK, a silver thermos, dented on one side, and a journal, open, as if someone had been reading it on the way. In the margins, lines written in pen, neat, feminine handwriting. He didn't come. I waited. The train left, and I went with it. Further down, not in the column, but diagonally, like a whisper to herself. He promised, that last time. I believed. I thought the train was a sign, but signs don't decide. If a person doesn't come, they've already made their choice. Tucked inside the pages was a photograph, old black and white, a station, a platform, and a woman in a dark coat. In her hand, a suitcase, the same one, with the torn tag. He turned the photo over. On the back, CK, Train 217, Newport, March 14th. The embroidery on the handkerchief matched, CK, but that didn't align with the list, where she was SV Carter. Perhaps a maiden name, or the name she used to wait under. Edgar felt something shift inside. It all matched. Same line, same train number, same suitcase, same platform, only a year earlier. He closed the box and sat on a wooden crate. The basement was cold, as if the objects still held their own shadows. He didn't know why he had come, but now he had a name, a face, and a trail. And the longer he stared at that photograph, the more certain he became. This wasn't a coincidence. This was a recurrence. Masonville Station sat 40 minutes from the main depot. The train only stopped there on request. Low traffic, old building, chipped benches under a slanted roof. The letters on the schedule board had peeled from time and rain. Edgar went there on his day off. He left his car near the crossing. The station greeted him with silence. Not even pigeons. Behind the glass of the ticket booth sat an old attendant. He looked up when Edgar entered. "Looking for something?" he asked flatly. Edgar showed the printout, a photo of the suitcase with the caption, "Seen this? Was it left here?" The attendant nodded, as if he had expected the question. "Stood by the wall for 2 days. We thought the owner might return. Then we moved it to storage. It's there. No one touched it." He led Edgar to a back room behind the station. In the corner, on a metal rack, sat the suitcase. The fabric had faded, but the handle was recognizable. Cracked, wrapped in patchwork cloth. Edgar leaned closer. On the lower corner was a sticker. Newport, 14th of March, 2022. He ran his finger over the dust. The ink had bled, but the date was legible. That date, the one on the back of the photograph. He didn't open the suitcase. He just stood there, staring at it. "Odd, huh?" the attendant muttered, mostly to himself. "Some things, it's like they have patience. They wait, for a long time." Edgar nodded silently. When he stepped back onto the platform, a train roared past without stopping. The thunder of the cars echoed through his chest like a pulse. He remained standing there on the empty platform. The wind scattered wrappers across the asphalt. There was something strange about the place, not frightening, more forgotten, as if someone had waited there for a long time and then left, without being met. Too quiet a station, too long a pause. He couldn't explain why he brought the camera. It was an old DSLR he'd kept since his countryside photography days. He took it from the closet, charged the battery, cleaned the lens. What he planned to film, he didn't know, but something told him it might reveal itself. The morning route was ordinary. Same sleepy passengers, same wheeled suitcases, but again the list included seat 7A. The name, again feminine. S. Carter, the same initials. When everyone had boarded, 70A remained empty. Edgar placed the camera on the opposite shelf and turned it on. The lens was fixed directly on the seat, with no obstructions. From the first station to halfway through the trip, he didn't stop recording. Back home, he transferred the footage. Nearly 3 hours of video is the train's steady motion, occasional shifts in the frame. But at timestamp 2:31:7 during a tunnel crossing, he spotted something strange. In the window opposite, 7A, a face appeared. A woman's face, pale as if lit from within. In the frame, no one. But in the reflection, eyes, staring straight into the lens. He rewound, checked again. The frame before, empty. The frame after, empty. The face had lasted a second. No more. He zoomed in on the still. The features were familiar. He pulled out the photo from the basement, the one at the station. And even through the grain, the difference in age, in angle, it was her, the same woman. He looked back at the footage, and then noticed something new on the armrest of the seat. A handkerchief. That handkerchief. The one embroidered with CK. He reached for the handkerchief and froze. Because he heard a voice. Not from the speaker, not through headphones. Just there, in the carriage, in the air. As if someone had spoken close by, very softly. If you came after all, sit beside me. I understand why he didn't. It's just, not everyone knows how to wait. He didn't know if it was a voice or a thought, but the silence that followed felt different. The next morning he found a piece of paper in his bag. Heavy stock, folded in half, no envelope. The handwriting, steady with a slight slant. Not his, not a colleague's. There was only one sentence. I waited for him 3 years. He didn't come. But you noticed. Signed with the same initials. C.K. Edgar sat on the bench in the service area for a long time, staring at that sentence. Around him, coffee machines hummed, tickets were scanned, passengers bustled by, but it all receded. It felt like someone had quietly passed through and left this behind. Not for him, for closure. He returned home after dark, opened the storage closet, took out the suitcase, set it on the table. The lock was old with a steel loop. He tried to open it, nothing. Twisted harder, no click. Not opening it, not from fear, but from knowing. Not everything that can be opened should be. He put it back and noticed something on the floor. A dusty ring, like from a cup. Except he hadn't set a cup there. From that day on, every time, car 3 and seat 7A, he checked first. People bought tickets, but the seat remained empty. No complaints, no questions. Just emptiness with a preserved shape. Sometimes he'd leave a note there. Just one word. Here? Sometimes the note disappeared. Sometimes it didn't. But one day he found something else. Not paper, his own cup. From his kitchen. He hadn't brought it. But there it was, resting on the armrest, turned toward the window. Empty. He no longer tried to explain. Not to himself, not to anyone else. He didn't ask, didn't look for proof, didn't draw conclusions. He just kept working. Train after train, station after station. People boarded, departed, forgot umbrellas, left behind other people's words. Everything moved on as before. But seat 7A always stayed empty. He checked it even on days when no ticket was sold. Habit or respect, he no longer knew. Sometimes passing by, he noticed the faint outline on the seat, as if someone had just stood up or left behind a warmth no one else could feel. He didn't leave notes anymore. The last one he'd placed 2 weeks ago had vanished, without reply. On the seat lay a paper, his notebook, his handwriting. But he didn't remember writing it. I waited too, but maybe now it's my turn to ride. He set it on the windowsill in his room beside the handkerchief, the thermos, and the photo. A small altar to things that never found an ending, or chose not to. It stood as always, silent, impossibly heavy, as if it knew it would not be touched. Sometimes he wondered, what if all this was just coincidence? A woman, a photo, a ticket, a reflection. Maybe his mind was tired. Maybe he saw what wasn't there. But deep down he knew it wasn't about her or about him. It was about someone who waited too long and left without saying goodbye. And now the suitcase wasn't just forgotten. It was a reminder. And that's why no one opens it. That's why no one touches it. He didn't yet know on which day Seat 7A would finally be taken again, and he wouldn't be the one checking the list.